the expounder and the listener of the teaching must have the right motivation. And when we say right motivation, ultimately we are talking about doing what we are doing, which is listening to the teaching and the me giving you the teaching, for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. That is the right motivation. It is also traditionally, there is also a tradition that we invoke all the beings who wishes to listen to the words of the Buddha or the profound word of wisdom, such as Nagas, hungry ghosts, and all kinds of extraterrestrial beings. Even after more than 2,500 years, facts that we are spending some time, precious time, fact that we are investing our time and energy in listening to the teaching is so encouraging and inspiring. In Tibetan, the word for sentient being is sometimes, we use the word tsurul tonga. Tsurul tonga actually has many different connotations, among which it means someone who sees what is in front of you, what is within this life. Someone who is only bothered with this life. That's all he or she cares for. Nothing beyond that. Someone who only believes in what is believable. For this kind of sentient being, actually, Buddha Dharma is useless. Buddha Dharma is never really designed to make, to adorn, to beautify this life. Enriching this life is not really the purpose of the Buddha. In fact, to tell you the truth, dismantling, deconstructing, pulling the rug out of your feet of this life is purpose of Dharma. So if you are only thinking about this life, the glory, beauty, success, comfort, security of this life, then you are not really a Dharma practitioner. Such is said by Manjushri to Sachin Kunga Nyingpo of the Sakepa. But of course, this is difficult because we are programmed, we are brainwashed to only think about this life.
但当然，这样子讲呢，其实是非常危险，非常困难，因为我们呢其实是设定成这样子，我们呢也被人家洗脑了，就是认为说这一生是这么的重要的。
Everything that surrounds us somehow make us stuck and care for this life and engross with this life. But as we discussed yesterday, at times, some of us, we feel really exhausted and feel awkward to this continuous, meaningless struggle called this life. For this kind of people, then Dharma is music to the ear. There is hope and potential to start our practice. Okay? As I said yesterday, This is Gunzana Mishalung, which is written by Patu Rinpoche. It's Dzogchen Chembo's Ngondro, Dzogchen Ngondro. And time and again, you must have heard, the Dzogchen Chembo is the swiftest, easiest, simplest path. And it is true. It is not an exaggeration. It is not like, commercial advertisement. It is true. Actually, the statement such as it is the fastest, the quickest, the swiftest, the easiest is not enough to advertise the Mahasandhi path. It's just not enough. It's much more than that. But there, the very fact that it is so simple happens to be the very rope that will bind us and derail us. Only to the certain extent we appreciate the simplicity of Mahasandhi. I'll give you an example. We get tired looking at sadhanas that has 60 pages. Needing to read that every day after so and so abhishekas. Requirement of prostrations, retreats, all of this makes us feel very discouraged. So, in the midst of all this, when we hear, oh, in the Mahasandhi, you don't need any of that. You don't need to chant, you don't need to visualize, you don't need to read, you don't need to prostrate, you don't need to breathe in and out, you don't have to do any of this. You just be there, so to speak.
So
that is very sort of refreshing. But, that actually is not inspiration. This is what I call your ultimate laziness about to bloom. You don't want to practice, you don't want to put any effort, and therefore you just like the idea of getting everything but doing nothing. And in other writings of Patu Rinpoche, he said, actually there's two things, Chö Dzogchen and Gangsa Dzogchen. Person Dzogchen and the path Dzogchen. Chö Dzogchen, the path Dzogchen, yes, it's very, very simple and it is just amazing. It is mind-boggling. It's a bit like a medicine.
这有点像是就是我们谈药。
But if the medicine is not eaten by the person, medicine is just sitting on the closet and it's very nice, but it's not having any effect. So, Chö Dzogchen and Gangsa Dzogchen, path Dzogchen and the person Dzogchen should not become divorced. A sudden temporary inspiration towards the Dharma Dzogchen, path Dzogchen, is not going to make the person Dzogchen. So there are so many Dzogchen so-called Dzogchen practitioners who doesn't do Ngondo, who doesn't do Lojong. They are the worst kind of people on earth. They're arrogant because they have path Dzogchen. Instead of going inside their heart and the mind, it's sunk into their mouth. So they know how to say, oh, don't worry. But there's always a way to make them worry. And
非常容易呢让他担心。
And when they get worried, they worry miserably. They become full of pride. They have so much pride. Basically, they become a kalas. Kalas is something that you call it.
Yeah.
In Tibetan, we call it chötep. Tepto, meaning basically you become very rigid. Whether they are really a great Dzogchen Chempa practitioner or not, you can check very easily. Make them miss their lunch one day, or pinch their wife's bottom, something like that. They become totally unsettled. there you see the Dharma Dzogchen and the person Dzogchen has become very distant. It's for these reasons Lojong is so necessary. Mind you, when we receive Dzogchen teachings, we get inspired. And those inspirations are necessary. They are very great. They are blissful. They are a bit like an igniter. And sitting in the presence of a Dzogchen master also makes you feel really good. Sitting or standing in front of a Dzogchen master also makes you feel really good. But they're very temporary. And Dzogchen masters are not portable. You can just put it in your pocket to get inspired all the time. Even if they are, even though you can sort of collapse your master and put it inside your bag, so whenever you need the inspiration, you just unpack it and look at. Even if that is possible, after a few months or a year, the Guru will just annoy you deadly. Lojong. Touching the base. Touch base. By the way, the touch base pith instructions, I got it from a 17-year-old girl, American. I'm so bad with computers. So I went to a Mac shop in America. And they assigned me this young girl who's really almost like my daughter, she's supposed to teach me. And she was trying to explain very fast, she's and I'm just totally lost. But then she's so good. She says, okay, let's touch base. Meaning, let's go back to the basic stuff. So, same thing here. Mahasandhi, Mahamudra, incredible. But even the most seasoned Dhamma practitioners, we should always visit the base. This probably may be confusing to tell you, but I have heard this and I think it's quite true. If you have done the Lojong thoroughly, it is believed that a bodhisattva who has gone through lots of Lojong will actually have more benefit of sentient beings in the future. So, please think about the right motivation, and I will if one is serious in pursuing the spiritual path, not only we appreciate our human state or this human rebirth, and think about its impermanence, and of course the ever lasting downfall of samsara. To think about these things, of course, is very important. Of course, it's very important. Now, on top of that, one of the most crucial things to think about, or at least have a little bit of knowledge, is about karma. Yes, cause, condition, and effect. And in this regard, also about reincarnation. There's something so good about Chinese Mahayana Buddhism. It really talks about karma a lot. I appreciate this especially because I have this big concern, almost like a fear. Buddhism is growing everywhere now. So also in the West. And I think the Buddhist wisdom, especially on the ultimate level of things like emptiness, is very much appreciated by Western intellectuals. They really only just now begin to realize that long before other civilizations, there was great thinkers like Nagarjuna. But on the other hand, and this is, I really want to stress, probably I'm totally wrong, but the fundamental, concept of non-duality is just not seeping inside the modern people's mind. And West, I feel that almost all the Western philosophy is so dualistic. science is very dualistic. And science is actually very, very tsurul tongwa. What you see, only you believe, kind of. So I don't know whether some of you may have noticed this, but there's a new trend of Buddhism that's growing everywhere, even in the East, actually. Many so-called Vipassana people, with a mixture of all kinds of New Age ideas and, Osho and Krishnamurti and all of that kind of thing. So many Buddhists of these kind, they really not only refuse to talk about karma, they almost make you believe that karma has nothing to do with the Buddhism. It's a Hindu stuff. And reincarnation is also Hindu stuff, caste and all these kind. And then on top of that, of course, the Tibetan, sort of phenomena of reincarnated tulku does not help this case, of course. So people think this is something to do with the Tibetan. When I say the quintessence of the teaching of the emptiness is actually about karma, they just can't accept it. But of course, karma is difficult to, also study and contemplate because it's very vast. So I'm sure some of you know who I'm talking about. There are many Buddhists who now say, well, when we die, we become all one with the universe. Like our body become immersed with the atmosphere. And, they don't talk about reincarnation. And my answer is, why not go and rob a bank and become rich? And, as long as you are not caught by a police, who cares? You do whatever you want. Because whether you be a good boy or a bad boy, at the end, you will all become one. And I tell you, this statement is not only coming from ordinary people. This statement has come from a very prominent, respected, even, Buddhist leaders. And that really creates a concern in my head. Because if you don't accept the philosophy of karma or reincarnation, then by consequences you will have to go through lots of, you will have lots of, philosophical consequences. If you don't believe in karma or reincarnation, your consequences, you are believing in the end. The end. The truly existing end. So many times I wonder how much of modern Buddhism is taught without the influence of Christianity, which believes in Genesis, truly existing Genesis, and truly existing end. That is not Buddhism at all. These are very subtle, but very, very important because, it is these kind of, the destruction of the Dharma, with the guns and bombs and all of that, that's not a destruction of the Dharma. These kind, infiltrating, concept, infiltrating the fundamental Buddhist view and, philosophy, these are dangerous. Okay, now these are probably beside the point of the Ngondro teaching here. Here, the reason why we have to really contemplate on cause, condition, and effect, karma basically, is ultimately to make us realize that we have no control over ourselves at the moment. No matter what we do, think, say, hear, taste, it's all one way or another through the influence of a certain cause and conditions that is planted. So this actually would also clarify certain doubt. Some people think, life is predetermined. Not necessarily.
那并不一定是这样子。
This is why contemplating on karma is important, because karma as much as it is logical, not chaotic, is really, really non-deceptive, it is a compounded phenomena. It is something that can be manipulated. Let me put it another way. Why are we practicing the Dharma? In a layperson's language, because we all want to control ourselves, have a complete control, 100%. That is actually enlightenment. When you have a complete control over yourself, that's actually the enlightenment. Right now, we don't have control over ourselves 100%. Most of 99.99 is controlled by cause and condition. We say, when the wind of karma is blown, we just have to sort of, if we are not prepared, we just will have to follow that. We never know. Next year, the wind of karma from Bolivia might come, and you might end up marrying a Bolivian. Right now, it's unthinkable, isn't it? No, me, Bolivia, with a Bolivian? No, not possible. We don't know. This is all when the wind of the karma blows. At the moment, we have no control. The enlightenment is basically when you are not no more under the control of conditions. So I just cannot understand why, Buddhism is taught without emphasizing on karma, because it's a contradiction. It's just not there. It doesn't exist. Because right now our mind works like this. We hear the air condition. Is it made in Japan? Oh no, must be China. These days everything is made in China. Is it better than the one that's made in Taichung? And then my friend has one that is actually really good. Oh, what's my friend doing now? Last year I had a really good time with him, but I can't understand. These days he seems to be ignoring me. Let me give him a call. Then you call. It's an answering machine. Then you say, this man, leave a message probably.
Leave a message.
You will leave a message to call back and never receives any answer. And then you really worry now. See, it all started from the sound of air condition. This is how our mind is conditioned. By the time we reach to the answering machine stage, we are already worked up. Second time you are calling and you leave a rude message saying, what, I've been calling you and why are you not calling me back and all that. Now, to counter these, we meditate, right? One out of many methods, one is meditation, such as vipassana. So what does vipassana do? Well, there's many different levels of vipassana. So let's choose maybe the fourth one, let's say. You hear the sound of air condition. You just know that that's what you are hearing. Much better. You have much more control. The thought of where is it made in Japan might not come. Even if it does come, you just notice that again. So on and on, you have much less chance to get entangled. And of course, in the beginning, maybe you will still get entangled, but you still have that awareness coming back again and again. And because of that, you laugh at yourself. You just, maybe you get also frustration. You laugh at yourself. You feel how ridiculous it is. So this is what happens. So as you go on like that for let's say 2-3 years. So after a few years, the moment you have an eruption of emotion, your guard of awareness is also there simultaneously. I'm sure right now, after maybe about a week of emotion, this crippled guard of awareness already so late behind sort of creeps in a little bit and quickly says goodbye and run, right? Right now. But this guard will become more and more efficient. It will come more and more closer to the time. And then, as I said earlier, one day, moment there is an emotion, there is also the God. Then your emotion will always feel like if you are peeing, somebody is looking at you. Pissing. If you when you are peeing, there's somebody just looking at you will make you feel, like awkward. Should I just continue or, like. Then, after maybe another few more years, both problem and the solutions not necessary. Then you have a complete control. So it's because of this. Contemplating on the karma is so important. So I have I'm viciously against those Buddhists who are deliberately ignoring the karma. Continuing with the karma, as I've been demonstrating about how our thoughts works, from sound of air condition all the way to erupted emotion. And many of these emotions are triggered by thoughts of harming and creating pain to others. Many of these thoughts are triggered by anger, jealousy, pride, all kinds of emotions, doubt, pride. And many of these thoughts are also triggered by good thoughts, love, compassion, kindness, caring. And then these thoughts then becomes more serious and more solid, and then gets applied as an action. And it always has an effect. So really, when people say, "Oh, I'm sick because it must be my bad karma," they almost interpret this as some kind of punishment. It's not really it's not a matter of a punishment or a reward. It is just an effect of a certain cause and condition. The other misunderstanding is some people think that we, as a Buddhist, we must do lots of good karma. That is true, only on the relative level. Ultimately, no. Our aim is to transcend bad and good karma, both. Practically speaking, at this point, it is important to transcend or destroy or stop the bad karma or related activities. Because if not, as I said repeatedly, every action has its consequences. I say this again, these Buddhists who are not kind of believing in karma, they're believing in free lunch, which even ordinary people don't believe. Practically speaking, right now, we have to really stop or discontinue bad karma, because the consequence of the bad karma, so-called the bad karma, is pain and suffering and all of that, and it really hijacks you from time of practicing the dharma. So it makes sense to accumulate good karma so that we at least have things like precious human body, merit to practice the dharma. Now, both bad karma and good karma are largely determined by the motivation. So I think people get confused here. Like in Buddhism, there is a practice of taking vows, like I will not eat meat, I will not kill, I will not steal. And these are, yes, at glance, it's a very moralistic, theistic kind of practice, but actually it is very much grounded to the philosophy of karma. For instance, like taking a vow is a very, very smart way of investment in the bank of good karma. I'll give you a good example. For instance, right now, people like you and me, we don't go and kill, things. We don't necessarily go with a gun and a knife and kill, do we? Of course, you don't have a bad karma of killing anyone because you don't kill. But you also don't have the good karma of not killing. You are not killing anyone because you are lazy, because you are a coward, because you are so afraid to kill anyone. You're just, killing takes time and energy.
It didn't take time and energy.
Time and energy and strategy and, So the method is you go to, for instance, in front of a statue of Avalokiteshvara and say that from today onwards, I shall not kill. From then on, because you have taken a vow, even as you are sleeping, when you are sleeping, you are obviously not killing, but you are collecting merit. Again, here I repeat, karma is really important because karma is the net that we live in. Karma is one shadow that is always there following you. If it is not met with an obstacle, karma waits. It's not wasted by itself. For this reason, one should not despise even a small good karma, thinking that this is so small, there's no point of accumulating. Similarly, one should not despise small bad karmas, because even a small fire can, lead to a big fire. Again, here I repeat that for karma, the bad and the good karma is determined by the motivation. For this reason, even though bodhisattvas are allowed to basically do everything as long as it's benefiting sentient beings, they are not allowed to engage the three negative action of mind. Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. You cannot have, for the sake of all sentient beings, have a harmful thought to others. And also, Guru Rinpoche Pamasambhava advised to King Trisong Gyaltsen, both the wisdom and the action has to be there in order to practice. If the view is not accompanied by the method, then it can lead you to nihilism. If the method is not accompanied by the wisdom, then you will fall into eternalism. So anyway, these four thoughts are something that is encouraged by the past lamas to stir our mind towards the Dharma. Then, if you are really serious in seeking a spiritual path, having a master is important, especially in the Vajrayana. But before having a master, it's important to really analyze the master. One must be smart in analyzing the master. Then one must be smart in accompanying the master. Then one must be smart in emulating the master. Anyway, master is crucial because we ordinary beings, we are so fragile and so fickle and so easily manipulatable. Even though we may have a spark of renunciation mind or devotion temporarily, without the master, you may lose it. Ideally, the master should have the quality that is stated in the Pratimoksha, Mahayana, and the Tantrayana texts. Qualities that is stated in the three yanas. One must avoid the master that has big emotions. One must avoid the master that are worldly. One must avoid the lamas that are short-tempered and those who have grudges, those who have no love and compassion. Because these kind of lamas are like a madman as a guide. Avoid the master who has no compassion or love. One must avoid the master who has pride of his, knowledge and his family and his all the worldly qualities, because they are like a wooden mill that will not able to grind you.
Wooden mill.
Mill, like a mill is. Guru Rinpoche said, if you do not analyze the master, it's like drinking poison. If you do not analyze the student, it's like jumping from a cliff. So, analyzing before one takes as a student and a master is very important. Once the person is taken as the master, then one must try to have devotion at all cost, because the master is like a boat that will take you to the other shore, because he is like the guide that will lead you, because he is like a rainfall that will extinguish the fire of emotion. He is like a sun and moon that illuminates the darkness of ignorance. He is like a earth or the ground that can hold everything. If you meet a right master, even if you encounter a right qualified master, having a virtuous connection will make you enlightened within this life. If you meet or if you encounter a really qualified master, and if you have a non-virtuous link, your samsara is guaranteed to be the end of the samsara is guaranteed.
The end of the samsara. Okay.
If you encounter such a master, you must consider yourself like a patient.